Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smart Sex, Smart Love, where talking about sex goes beyond the taboo and talking about love goes beyond the honeymoon. Today, our show is about what different sex couples can learn from same-sex couples to improve their relationship. My guest today is Dr. Lynda Spann, a frequent contributor for many news sources on the subject of LGBTQ mental health. As a lesbian who struggled with coming out and establishing fulfilling and healthy relationships with women, Dr. Spann knows firsthand the struggles two women may face in an intimate and romantic relationship. She learned how to love in a way that freed her to be her true self, and she felt called to help other women, specifically lesbian identifying, to do the same. In 2018, she opened the Lesbian Couples Institute in Denver, Colorado, her dream that became a reality. Awesome. Dr. Spann has more than 20 years of experience as a marriage and couples therapist and counselor, and decided it was time to take her academic knowledge and her unique life experience to help her own community. Her new online coaching program is designed to fit the need of lesbian couples and their issues by providing step-by-step guidance from someone who knows firsthand how to do that work. Welcome, Lynda.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, I appreciate it myself. So, as time has gone on, I've always spoken for the LGBTQ community. I've been hired to present and books I've written and everything. But, I don't know, many people don't know this. I've talked about it a little bit. When I started to write my own books, my first book was going to be called 10 Smart Things Gays and Lesbians Can Do to Improve Their Lives. And the publishers all said, you got to take the lesbians out. And I said, why? I go, why? And I'm gay. They're like, they don't want men, gay or straight or bi at all, writing about their lives. It'll kill the sales. Did you ever hear of anything like that?
I have not heard it, but I'm shaking my head yes, because I can relate to it, and I think that women in my community probably relate to it as well.
Yeah, I think we did, and even in 2021, it's the same thing. If I do a TikTok, or social media about lesbians, I get a lot of lesbians who say, yeah, that's true, because I'm just reporting information. But I don't have the lived experience, which really rattles people, and
yeah.
But then if I'm the only one presenting, I want to have the information. That's why I'm so glad to have you here. When I look for lesbian information, I can find hardly anything. And Could you talk about that? What's all that about?
I don't know what it's about. It's not uncommon when lesbians are looking for help, they put in the word lesbian into Google search, and it's populated with all kinds of pornography sites. I just don't think there's very many lesbians that are in this profession that are that out. It can be a little bit scary to be out professionally, especially if we work with different sex couples and LGBTQ couples, because of heterosexism and that fear of, the different sex couples aren't going to want to come to our practice if we identify as lesbian.
Yeah, definitely.
So, in the research I've done, there's not very many lesbian therapists that really advertise that.
Right. And even if they do, and I know a few, they're not necessarily doing research on this. So that's what's hard to find, especially lesbian sexual health. I know a lot about gay male sexual health. We write about it. There's lots of research, but I go to look up lesbians and I find hardly anything.
Yeah. In fact, I'm in the process of looking for opportunities to pair up with some of the universities in this area to collaborate on some research together. But even that has been a slow process of getting, academicians to call back.
Right. And then get something started. Maybe you'll start your own certificate program then, your own research. Well, you're doing your own coaching. Right.
Yeah.
I like that you say, and I think people need to hear that when you say different sex couples versus same-sex couples, can you define that so people know what you're talking about? Yeah.
So same-sex couples are couples where both individuals identify as the same sex, male, female. There are other queer couples that have different ways of identifying, but that's how I define same sex. And different sex couples are individuals of different sexes, male and female. They may or may not identify as straight. They may identify as bisexual or fluid. Yet they're a couple. So that's what I mean by it.
Okay. And, one of my biggest pet peeves, I wonder for 20 years as a therapist, is when I do trainings and therapists will say, a couple is a couple. I work with couples. I don't see gender. I just see people. And I'm like, okay, that there's a lot of overlap, but you're missing what two women bring, very different than two men, very different than
Yeah,
a different sex. What would you
yeah,
speak to that?
yeah. Happy to speak to that. I guess that I think that at one level there is a lot of overlap, and so people say a relationship is a relationship is a relationship, and
Right.
at the level of we're wired for connection. We all we just crave to be loved and understood and accepted. I think that's universal for
Yeah.
all couples and all
Yes.
people. Um, I think that some of the struggles are the same. Couples, regardless of their sexual orientation, almost always say their number one problem is communication,
Right.
and there's money struggles and
Children.
sexual desire discrepancy and parenting and attachment style challenges that are happen across all types of couples. And then there's some unique things for all iterations of couples, including lesbian couples and gay male couples.
So what are the unique things for two women?
So I think that one of the reasons that there are unique things for two women is because two women, their brains, their bodies, and their socialization is all very similar, if not the same, right? And so there's strength in that. There's some great things about that, and then there's some challenges. One of the challenges I've seen over my years of practicing is that for lesbian couples, because women are socialized to be the tender to how do I want to say it, tend to the emotional fire of relationships, right? We're socialized to play with dolls and to be very tuned into emotional temperature of a relationship. So you get two women like that, both focusing on the emotional energy in the relationship. There can be a very fast, growth of intimacy and attraction, and that first stage of being in love can be just powerfully intimate for two women. The downside of that is that there can be what's been referred to as a merging for lesbian couples, and a greater struggle, I think, with that stage of differentiation of, oh yeah, we really are different, even though we look alike and sound alike and think alike, but actually we're different. And then negotiating that, I have found to be more challenging often for lesbian couples.
So differences, like couples often struggle with differences. Would you say two women struggle a little more?
I think so. I mean, that's, and I haven't researched it, but in my practice, I have noticed that there's more distress around kind of that discovery of we do have differences.
Yes, right. So there's an other involved that is not like I was trained by a lesbian imago therapist, and she came up with her thing was you and I are one and I'm the one. Right. And it's sort of an enmeshment. She would call it an enmushment. But, in the 90s, lesbians started writing and saying, wait a minute, I don't feel that way. Like there's a healthy merging that two women can have that a therapist might mislabel as enmeshment. Could you speak to that? Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think there is healthy. There's again, we're trained to really take the role of nurturing relationships, being tuned into to partners, regardless of if our partner is same or different sex. So you have two women that are focused on that. That is a beautiful thing. I mean, that there's just this automatic level of nurturing and tuning in that is, I would not want to pathologize at all. I think the challenge again comes in being able to identify how am I different, and then having the courage to really speak up about it.
Right, and then be able to tolerate it.
Yeah, because also often girls are trained to be people pleasers and have a tendency toward acquiescing to what we think partners want. and to avoid conflict. And so I think that's the challenge. But there's a beautiful aspect to having two people that are so tuned in.
Yes, yes. But I like what you're saying, because even in the 80s and the 90s, when I was doing my own research, first doing it with gay and lesbian couples, they talked about doubling. Two men bring the brain, the body, and the socialization, just like two women,
Yeah.
So, and people don't know, that's the biggest difference that I think therapists don't attune to.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's physiology and gender role socialization.
Okay. And why did you decide to create the Lesbian Couples Institute? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So my wife Lisa and I used to live in a smaller city in Colorado, and we would just sort of dream about, are we ready for an adventure and moving to a bigger city? And so that was sort of in the background. And then in 2018, I joined a year-long master mentorship program that Ellen Bader and Pete Pearson run. They're the founders of the Couples Institute. And the first weekend that my cohort got together for an in-person retreat, it was in January of 2018. And I remember I was nervous about coming out to this group. I didn't know anybody, but I put on my big kid panties and I did it, from the first moment. And in that experience of coming out to a group of therapists and to Ellen and Pete and that whole thing, I felt such support and acceptance and like this net that just kind of came under me. And in that process, I just remember that weekend having this, I think, a fairly profound feeling of this is my next purpose. Sort of a deep calling, and not in the religious sense, but just in that, man, in the depth of my gut, I had this strong feeling I need to create a therapy home for my people, for my peeps.
So if I'm a lesbian individual and a couple, what do I expect? If I contact you and I'm entered into your coaching program, what do I get?
Yeah, you get somebody that's walked in your shoes and really understands the unique challenges to lesbian relationships. I have in-person practice as well as an online coaching program. It's a 10-week program online just for lesbian couples. There's training modules and workbooks that I toiled over for months. And then a community of other lesbian couples that want to grow and create an amazing relationship. And my wife and I, Lisa's also a therapist. We co-facilitate it, and it's just a ton of fun. And we also get to model what, two women that have done their work, how they get to show up in the world.
Yeah. So tell me, what's in the 10 weeks? Like, what would I get if I bought that package?
There's 5 training modules, all of which I think are foundational to building secure relationships. And there's video training and PowerPoints and workbooks that have a lot of exercises.
Like communication, is that what you mean? Like, or would I understand sexual health, how to talk to my partner about sex? Like, you mean like that?
Yeah. So learning the fundamentals of what makes a good relationship, how our neurology, how our brains affect, whether we get into a big fight or not, and how to recognize if we're fleeing our window of tolerance. So there's a section on brain. There's a section on understanding our roots, each other's roots. This is all about attachment and relationship styles.
Okay.
There's a big section on communication. There's not a section on sex and sexual health. I think that's going to be the next course.
Yeah. I would totally encourage it, because so many, I have a lot of lesbian couples and clients, and they're struggling, and they have the similar struggles that straight couples have, as you said, desire discrepancy, but they have specific things, like, for instance, both might be going through menopause.
Yeah.
1 in 4 women have been sexually abused. So there might be a sexual abuse story or trauma history, and addressing those kinds of things when it's happened to both of them,
Yes. Yeah, menopause is a bear. Menstrual cycles that they tend to get synchronized, but that can be a challenge too for two women. So yeah, that's my next one.
Okay.
And then there's for the current program, there's a 2-hour coaching call once a week. So we get on a Zoom platform and just do a lot of great work with all the couples that are in
And is that like we can talk about anything, or do you have like a set way? Okay, here's what we're going to talk about. This a theme every week, or no?
It's a combination. Sometimes it's here's a couple of starters. Let's see if we can get a good group process going. Other times we're a little bit more structured. So it just depends on the week and what's happening in the group.
Okay, great. And then what about other things in terms of intimacy? How do you help them? Not just sexual, obviously, but in terms of two women, is there something different to help them get toward closer intimacy than there would be other couples?
I don't know if it's different. I think the bigger emphasis for lesbians that I do is to really work through this piece of how can we move into a place where we can be our unique, strong selves, all the while having a very safe and secure us, right? So that combination of we're together and we're separate. So I think that emphasis might be a little bit unique. We talk a lot about ways to maintain and nurture connection, whether it's through hugging or eye gazing or repairing quickly or responding to what Gottman calls bids for connection. Also have a lot of discussion around how do we form habits that really support the relationship, and what are those habits, and what are really, why are agreements important in a relationship, explicit agreements, and help them determine what's going to be best for them as a couple.
What about there's another therapist I'm blocking on her name because I don't know why, but she talks about internalized lesbian phobia, and she says it's really important to not call it homophobia when it's women, because lesbians have their own specific ways of experiencing homophobia. Do you agree with that, and could you speak to that?
That's interesting. I need to find that person and read her work. I've always identified with internalized homophobia, so I'm gonna have to think about that one, Joe.
It's all right. I just like that because
I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you learned about that?
Well, here's what it reminds me of: misogyny and misogynoir. Misogyny would happen to you as a white woman, but misogynoir would be misogyny against a person of color, a woman of color. Yeah. So, and she experiences it very differently, And so I think just the whole idea that if you look up lesbian health or lesbian couples and you go to a bunch of porn sites, just that alone is in a sense lesbian phobia. That all lesbians just have a bunch of sex and they're making porn, and it's just bullshit,
Yeah. Yeah, and we haven't gotten good portrayal in the media or shows or
No, I mean it's so much better. Young people don't understand. Yeah, we have Ellen. Yeah, we have Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, we have a lot. We have I forget the name of that woman that has a CNN show or MSNBC show, Rachel Maddow. But we don't see like ongoing lesbian couples, ongoing, the inner workings. And one thing I do notice, and wonder if you see this in your office, lesbian couples, for me, women couples, escalate way faster than a straight couple, than a gay couple in my office. Do you see that as well?
And when you say escalate, they escalate in terms of
anger,
getting
frustration, the power struggle.
They can both be very passionate in their positions, and I think because there's not the same power difference, that can be part of it as well.
Okay. I have my own theory I wanted to run by you. I wondered what your thoughts were. I feel like women in general are taught not to show strong emotion and not to be angry or work through anger. They're supposed to suppress it.
Yeah.
Still women are socialized. So by the time they get into my office, they're in a rage. I see it as rage. And I'll
Yeah.
say to them, I want to help you remove the rage to get to the anger, but then under the anger, get to the hurt. But when you're in my office and we start talking and you escalate to this rage, I can't help you. I'm just sitting here watching until you're done. It can be very difficult, and I have to really work with them. And that's what I wondered if you noticed the same thing.
Yeah, with some lesbian couples for sure. I mean, I'm thinking of a couple that was just here last week, and both of them became rageful and just left the office for a few minutes and then came back in. Getting triggered and not really knowing what to do at that point. Not
right
as a couple.
Right. I just see it a little bit more. I just noticed that in 37 years with women couples than I have more so. And I always attribute it to they're not sorting through in the same way that other couples do, their anger, their feelings.
Yeah.
And
Particularly negative emotions, anger, hurt. Yeah. There's an avoidance, I think, a greater avoidance of that vulnerability around negative emotions.
That's it. Yes, that's it. Right. And you wouldn't expect that with women. I think that's what caught me off guard in the beginning. You would think, well, women wouldn't be avoidant. They're going to be, more. But I think to just they are peacemakers, right? Giving socializes just going along and giving the peace. And then eventually it doesn't work, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. And not taught to speak up about those negative things.
Right. That's a better way to say it. Yes. What else do you think before we end that you wanted listeners to know about your lesbian coaching program and just your work?
Yeah, I just want to get the word out about the lesbian coaching program. Another thing I do, which I have a lot of fun with, is a one or 2 day private couples retreat. So there's no umbrella drinks or spa treatments, but folks come to Denver and we work together for usually a 2-day intensive. I had a couple that was here Monday and yesterday, and it was transformative for their relationship. And I really enjoy doing that. It's pretty exhausting, but
I know.
And the transformation can be close to miraculous or magical, I would say. Just focusing on the relationship in that way.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I offer for women that are in a pretty big crisis and need something to happen soon.
I do that too. I love doing. In fact, I always say if I could stop doing all therapy and only do intensives, I would be so happy at this point because I don't have to watch a clock. I can work with you until the argument's over. We can do a little EMDR. We can do some regression therapy, all kinds of stuff that we have to wait until the next appointment. I hate it. I'd rather just do it in one weekend.
I'm exactly with you. And yes, that is my goal to get to the place that I do intensives and the online coaching program. And I think I can serve my community best like that.
I do too. And people don't want to wait forever, and I'm noticing more and more people want to get to the root of things. So that's great. You offer that. How can they find you on the internet? Where do they go?
To lesbiancoupleinstitute.com. And there's a place there to fill out a contact form if you would like to hop on the phone and chat. So that's the best place to find me. And then under services, there's a variety of services that might be.
That's great. I think it's wonderful you and your wife are doing this, holding a space for lesbian couples, which is not popular. I mean, I feel like there's more resources for gay men than there are for lesbians. So it's just so wonderful to spotlight you and the work you're doing for the community. Yeah. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go online and rate and review the Smart Sex, Smart Love. You can find us on smartsexsmartlove.com. And you can also find me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all at Dr. Joe Kort, DrJoeKort. And you can always go to my website, joecourt.com. See you next time. Stay healthy. Stay safe.